Okay, so we're running the gamut here with former co-hosts. Joy Taylor was on the show yesterday. Amber Wilson was on the show last week. So we got to go for the trifecta now. People have been asking. All right, they've been longing for the debut on ZASLOW Show 2.0 of Brett Romberg. And now, I mean, listen, you've been on the phone with me many a times, on the show. But now it's video. I mean, how nice is this, Brett Romberg?
It's not too bad, man. I'm glad that I'm in high demand. That's pretty awesome, and thank you obviously for having me on. I although I am the third one at Beyond, that's cool, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? I know, of course, women take priority. I got it.
Well, look, I wanted to, we're sprucing the show up. I get the ladies out of the way first. They're both very
Right.
attractive, and then I close it off with you. I mean, it's still an upgrade from just me, from just this face right here. But I figure, hey, let's get the attractive ladies on the show first.
I do like the punum though, right? That is the name, right? That is the actual Yiddish
Yes.
name for the faces, the putum.
Yes, it is. You know what? I told Joy yesterday. I said one of the things that I miss the most about doing the show with her is her and we have very similar movie and television show tastes, and I used to love being able to talk about that kind of stuff with her. And one of the things that I do miss about doing the show with you is I used to love explaining Judaism to you. Not that I'm some type of expert when it comes to Jewish, but it's like explaining it to an alien. I used to love explaining Jewish stuff to you.
I don't know what it is, man. I'm like baffled by a lot of it, and I guaranteed I grew up like some of my friends probably are and were Jewish back in Canada, but I don't know what it is. I just never realized it. Just obviously oblivious, and I think that's why I'm like probably so cool with a lot of the brothers down here in South Florida, in particular the ones that were on my team and every team that I've been on is. I don't know what it was, but we just never even looked at that, man. Like we didn't look at your race or your religion. We just kind of all were all jacked up and messed up and wanted to roam the streets a little bit. So, and ironically enough, I actually do I do mention it quite often to a lot of Jewish people, in particular one gentleman that when I refer to somebody that might not have the exact athletic build or size or ability, I call it the case of the Jew after what you have let me know about. Like, it's like one of those things where, and then immediately they go into laughter. So I appreciate the knowledge.
So I think a lot of people would like to know what you're doing these days, like what you're up to. Fans of Zaslow, Roms, and Amber. From doing the show so many years and hearing you every day, I think a lot of people are wondering what you're up to right now, man.
Well, for the most part, a lot of it is just the kids. To be honest with you, once we took on that third kid, life became a little hectic, being outnumbered. But now that all three of them are in school, I have a lot more time to focus on what I got going on now, and kind of like working with the University of Miami a little bit, and dealing in the health sector, ironically enough. So working kind of with, as a business development side of things, working with certain hospital systems and different like oncology departments and extending living facilities and things like that in terms of the medical space. So that's what I've kind of dipped my toe into somewhat here. It obviously gives me some freedom to be with my family and to be with my kids. So, and also, partake in sports here and there.
I feel like some people may hear that, like, wow, that's really impressive. And I always used to tell people when we started doing the show years ago and I started to really get to know you, you obviously come off like a meathead caveman many a times. Okay. And I
Right.
love that. But one of the things that I would tell people is, I would say, let me tell you something, because I've gotten to know him now. Romberg, not stupid. And
Right.
and I know that, like, I'm saying it, I'm making it really simplistic when I say it like that, not stupid, but that really is what I would say to people, where, yeah, you can come off one way, especially when we're talking about sports related and you're coming from that jock caveman perspective, but totally not stupid. So it doesn't surprise me that you're doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it baffles a lot of, especially now, being in school systems, and that you went through this back when I was on the show with you, and I could never understand it because my girls weren't at that level yet or at that age where, you kind of do have to mingle with some other families and some parents of other kids. And, immediately they hear, and kudos to these people and these families, predominantly a lot of businessmen, a lot of people that have done very well for themselves, a lot of predominant people in society. And the minute that they see me at the school, they're automatically thinking, okay, meathead Josh
Yeah.
doesn't know what's going on. But the minute we sit around a bottle of beer or have a cigar or whatnot, they kind of get put in shock and awe at the level of intelligence, or even just like the vast uh, landscape of things that I might know a little bit about. I don't know a lot about things, but I definitely know a little about a lot.
I believe it, man. I believe it. So I'll work my way to the Canes. We're going to talk about the Canes and Clemson this weekend. I'll work my way to the Canes with you. I know everybody
Right.
wants to hear your thoughts, okay? And I certainly do as well. And I'm sure you got a little bit to say, all right? But I do
Absolutely.
want to do a couple of NFL things here with you, and I want to get from a former player's perspective. So this past weekend, you saw a former center just like yourself. And we know the centers are usually one of the smartest guys, at least football wise, are one of the smartest guys on the team. Okay. You played center.
Right.
Jeff Saturday played center for Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. And he just debuted this past weekend, and a head coach with literally zero experience, no experience. High school doesn't count. I'm sorry.
Right.
No experience as a head coach. All right. He debuts. A bunch of people were mad. Bill Cowher was on television, very angry about it. That, it's a disgrace to his profession that someone with no experience can just jump the line and get in front of everybody. Give me your thoughts on that right there. But also, as a player, you're in that locker room, and now they're telling you, hey, your new head coach right there, he was on your television a couple of days ago. He has no experience. Give me some thoughts on that.
Well, obviously I heard Joy Taylor's position on this as well, because she's been, throwing her fist in the air about it. And I almost agree with her. I do. And the reason why I agree with her is because when I was done playing, I kind of had an opportunity to get right into it, to either start at the collegiate level or get into it at the professional level in the NFL, of finding a way to get back in and stay in the locker room for the most part, whether that's administratively, working with Thomas Dimitroff with the Falcons, becoming an assistant offensive line coach, or even becoming an offensive line coach for college football. I always heard the same thing: Brett, you can't start off at the top. You can't be the offensive line coach. You cannot be an assistant general GM, basically, general manager. You can't be these things. You have to start off in the dark room, exactly the way that Spo started out.
You got to
with the
eat a little
Miami
bit
Heat.
of shit for a little while.
You have to climb the ladder. And to a man, I've never, ever heard anything different. I've never heard anything different about anybody skipping up the corporate ladder. The amount of bureaucracy that goes on, the amount of dues that need to be paid. So this is where I agree with Joy 100%. And it does. I understand Cowher's position too. It does really pull the rug out from underneath a lot of people that grinded and found ways to just stay and wait for their turn or their opportunity, But I also have the position of where Jeff's been around a long time. Jeff knows a lot about football. He also probably knows that being a head football coach, 60-70% of it is about the delegation of everything. You need to be able to delegate and be able to trust your coordinators. So as long as Jeff Saturday has who he needs or who he thinks he needs as his coordinators, and then obviously his positional coaches, you very rarely have any interaction with your head coach. He's more of a game day, timeout, manage the clock, or the situation kind of coach. And as a player, you very rarely have any interaction with him. Nowadays it's different. It's a little bit more different, especially what we see going on down here in Miami with the Dolphins head coach, because he just seems like more of a player's coach, So I could understand there might be more interaction in this day and age of football, but for the most part, yeah, I've and even as recent as like 2 years ago, I was asked if I wanted to go do anything coaching wise, and they're like, okay, we'll start you off in the scouting department, and you're like, nah, scouting department's like what, 40 grand, 50 grand at best. You're picking up dudes from the airport. So even as illustrious as an NFL career might be, you still have to start near the bottom. There's a reason why, Jason Taylor is probably not the actual defensive line coach. I'm sure, time and commitment might be one of the requirements at the University of Miami, but I don't know if JT is willing or ready to take on that amount of dedicated time to a particular craft. And once you sign up for that, man, you're almost like signing your life away to it. Your family's gone, everything's gone around you for at least 4 or 5 months out of the year. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm with Joy too, man. If they make this decision to go ahead and have him as a head coach, this dude better ball out. He better really set precedent, because just like they made an example of whether it's Richie Incognito or anything new nowadays, if you don't follow up and follow through and either figure out a way to be outside of the norm, like what Jeff Saturday needs to be, he needs to basically rewrite the whole playbook on what it is to be an NFL coach nowadays. Like, he literally needs to be the messiah, if you will, of new coaching style and football, in order for this to go ahead and make any ground, and have any opportunity in the future.
So we're talking like 5 weeks ago, I think 5 or 6 weeks ago, when the Dolphins, Thursday Night Football, the Bengals, Tua gets the concussion, the fingers, the whole deal. When you saw that, because I haven't spoken to you since then, when you saw that Tua, the fingers, stretcher, he's not moving, what were you thinking?
I was one of the people that, again, Joy was pumping her fist in the air, talking about nobody called him out the week before. Nobody said anything the week before about Tua and why he didn't continue to play against the Bills and all this, why he did continue to play against the Bills. And I literally was one of the people that was like, there's no way in hell. This dude just got his eggs scrambled. Never, ever in my life have I ever tripped and fall after getting up because my back hurt or my ankle was sore. If your ankle's sore, you're going to the ground a whole different way. If your back is sore, you're going to the ground a whole different way. You're not wobbling and just, in no man's land. So it was very evident to me that Tua had his bell rung. No questions asked. I don't care what expert you're talking about. And I actually know who the off the field expert was, because he was a former Jacksonville Jaguar trainer that they were referring to as, the eyes at home or the TV guy. And that's ultimately the guy that ended up getting let go from the NFL, moving forward with that whole decision. But then seeing him line up again the following weekend, I was like, okay, it's possible that he got his bell rung and it was a quick little shake your head and get rid of the cobwebs kind of situation, and then maybe able to move on, which the majority of us have already done that. Like, we do that in our game. So, you get your bell rung, you don't know where you're at for a few plays, and then all of a sudden everything kind of realigns. But to watch the whiplash that he took, and the man that pulled him down, that massive defensive lineman with the torque that he whipped him around, I think that's ultimately where he got his concussion again, not necessarily by hitting the ground. Because if you watch, his head barely tapped the ground. It was more about that whiplash factor that he just got. It's almost like being in a bad car accident. And I watched that, and then all of a sudden, when you saw his fingers and he started throwing up gang signs, bro, I was like, oh, wow, this is real. This is real. And it's unfortunate, but I wasn't shocked, to be perfectly honest with you. Imagine, it's inner rivals, the Bills playing against the Miami Dolphins. It's a very close game, and it's the Miami Dolphins possibly coming back and beating the Bills, who were supposed to be thumping the Dolphins. So hell yes, they're not going to pull two out of that game. Whether it's coaches or doctors or whoever it might be, the conversation, no doubt in my mind, came from above and saying he's not coming out. Find a way to get him back in the goddamn game. And being a football player that Tua is and a competitor, he's saying the same thing. There's no way in hell I'm coming out. No way. So I'm going to go ahead and find a way. I don't care if I got to lie on national television saying it was my back or my ankle. I'm not coming out of this game. So, I get it on both sides of the fence. As ownership, as players, I get it as fans getting furious with the fact that they're jeopardizing the health of, their starting quarterback. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the animalistic, barbaric football approach, is where you know what you're doing on that football field. You know what you're signing up for. You're not signing up for badminton. This is a violent sport. You're going to get hurt. I guarantee you, in some form or fashion, you're going to get hurt no matter what. So it sucks, obviously, but you can clearly see my man is still rolling, man, and he's just proving all of the people wrong that have ever doubted him. So
he's so from a football perspective now, because you know what you're watching. Brett, he's so awesome, right?
Bro, dude is, and I'm again, the big knock on him was the fact that he can't throw the ball far, right? Which he still can't. I don't care what anybody says. It's still not like he's not exactly a bomber, but he's got wide receivers that are fast as hell. Number one, number two,
Like everything we're seeing right now is why everyone did tank for Tua.
Absolutely.
This is it. Like, this is why he was going to be the number one overall pick if he didn't get a hip injury.
And you could see how much of a difference just coaching makes. Like finding somebody to articulate what he's really good at or emphasize what he's really good at. You can
and
see
also,
it at the
some guys
level.
are like that, right? Where Flores was a hard ass and didn't believe in him. McDaniel is cut from a different cloth, and he does believe in him. And some players, right, they kind of need that pat on the back, right?
Oh, 100%. The amount of confidence, like as much as a player might say, I don't need the pat on the back, or I don't need anybody to tell me that I'm doing good. Shit, yeah, you do, man. You're a human being. You absolutely need somebody to go ahead and tell you you're doing a good job. I don't care if you're a husband or a wife or a kid. You need gratification and reassurance that the things that you're doing in the level of want and the level of diehard perseverance. Like you saw what Carr did the other day. Carr was on the goddamn podium crying his eyes out.
Did you like that? Did you like seeing that?
I did, because it shows that, some guys care and some guys don't care, and they're still getting checks, and they're still, they're basically just going to work every day and punching their ticket and punching the clock. That's all they're doing. And they don't care if they win or if they lose. And that's been going on forever and a day, because the whole line is checks don't change. Whether you win or lose, checks don't change. And you got guys that are passionate about the game, that are taking every drug imaginable just so they can show up at 7:30 in the morning and get a workout in and lay it on the line for their teammates, because they really have a lot of pride in what they do. But you also got a lot of guys that don't care about the guy next to them, that don't care about football. All they care about is getting the bag. It's sad. It's sad. It really is.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the Canes here. If I walk up to Brett Romberg, I want you to finish this sentence, okay? If I walk up to Brett Romberg, I see him on the street. Oh, man, that's Brett Romberg right there. Remington Trophy winner, national champion, never gave up a sack. He played in the NFL. If I see, I got to go talk to him, I'll walk right up to you. I go, yo, Romberg, the Miami Hurricanes are. And how do you finish that sentence?
In a horrible spot right now and are in a massive rebuilding phase. And I will say probably soft as baby shit, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't know if you saw this already today with Mario Cristobal about the kids going home and crying to their parents and crying to their moms about playing time and about coaches yelling at them. Obviously, nowadays you're dealing with a different football player, a much softer football player than what there was back then. The physicality, I think, of this game is going to deteriorate to ultimately nothing, where it's going to be flag football. You saw that happen. And so I've never seen more of a deterioration of a sport as rapid as it has been, in terms of, from the time that I hung them up, 2012 till now, basically a decade of football, it has totally done a 180. There's no massive dun-dun-dun hits anymore. You're not allowed to hit under what is that called in terms of like players that are unprotected.
Defenseless.
Whatever the phrase is. Yeah, defenseless players. Quarterbacks are getting early whistles. You're not allowed to roll on a quarterback now. You can't get up and push off. The amount of rules that they're trying to preserve the lifetime of certain quarterbacks and certain players nowadays is mind-boggling. You might as well just sign them up for 7-on-7. And I think the direction of this game trajectory is not going good, to tell you the truth. I think it's totally changing. Somewhat, some people would say for the better, to try to preserve the amount of money that they're actually guaranteeing these players to keep them upright and on the football field. But you're also creating a lot of soft-ass kids and a lot of soft-ass players that might not be taking care of their bodies or working their bodies to the level of fatigue like they used to. And I think I was a firm believer. If you ask Bill Cowher about this too, you ask any coach about this, the physicality that you do during the week prepares you for the anguish that you're going to face on Saturday.
And a lot of what I've been hearing as well is Cristobal is really hard on them during the week, right?
I sure as hell hope so, because I think he's trying to filter out the guys. Like, I'm not going to be shocked come December 5th if we have more than 10 guys hit the transfer portal. I won't be shocked whatsoever. And I would actually welcome a lot of it, to be honest with you. Former players right now, for the first time in a long time, are high on coaching and very down on players. And I think if you asked, and I did this the other day on the Out the Huddle podcast, if you asked me right now to go ahead and name 5 guys on either side of the football that you want to keep for next year to build a foundation, could you name 5? And we literally had a hard time coming up with 5. Wow. Like that is sad. We had Lou Hedley, our kicker, our punter, and Borigalis basically was 2 of the guys that had to pick up some of the spots on offense, to be perfectly honest with you. It even got to the point where, offensive line wise, what do we got going on? Wide receiver wise, I couldn't name you a relative wide receiver for the University of Miami. Like there's no wide receiver that you're going to go out and buy a jersey of. Like there isn't. Maybe Restrepo, for fun. I don't know. But to be perfectly honest with you, I don't see anybody. You're getting a kid that's transferring in here from JUCO ultimately and being our leading wide receiver of our program and making an immediate impact. You got a kid that just came in January now, Jakari, that is basically our starting quarterback, and I really would, moving forward, pending on, I'm not seeing what's going on in the film room, but pending on just looking at the relationship that he has and the camaraderie that he has and the spark that he ignited last weekend against Georgia Tech. I know it's Georgia Tech. You saw a different form of body language. You saw guys elevating their play because they either needed to protect him a little bit more or they just had a better relationship with him outside of that huddle. And sometimes it takes that. Sometimes it takes a backup coming in, whether it's threatening a starting position or just the fun, candid relationship that you would have with a backup that you really might not have with a starting guy. And I think that the mobility of Jakari, the throwing is yet to be determined, but the ability of execution and the lack of mistake and the drives that they took so much time off the clock and 11-play drives, 7-play drives, 8-play drives, the time of possession was incredible. And the fact that the offensive line finally came together, I know they got a couple new guys in there, but it seemed like they were a little nastier. I think they ran for a couple hundred yards. They had like 40-something carries for a couple hundred yards. So they really seemed to control the line of scrimmage. So now it's just a matter of, go ahead.
How surprised do you think Cristobal is with what's gone on this season? Do you think he had did he think they were going to be good this year?
No, he knew immediately because he would watch them. You know what I mean? He would watch them last year. Every time he would have his game, he'd go back and see if the Canes had their game a little bit later or even earlier in the day. And he would watch. Mario was just a giant Canes fan to begin with. And he would watch and he saw it from afar. He saw the amount of mistakes. He saw the amount of softness. He knew that this was going to be an uphill battle, but this is one of the things that he wanted to take on before his career of coaching was over with. And the stars aligned and everything worked out for him. But he knew
this was going to be really hard.
Yeah, but I don't think he knew about the stuff that he was inheriting in terms of like academic stuff and drug test stuff. And there was a lot of things that Mario wasn't privy to about these kids and how they operated outside of that locker room, both academically and party wise. There's just no accountability here, like zero accountability. Manny Diaz had no accountability at all to any of these players, whether it was upon themselves or any kind of leadership roles that were trying to, negate any of that stupid stuff that was going on here.
Wow. So you and your former teammates, as far as Cristobal goes, like you guys are like, obviously there's no way you expected this kind of season, but you're totally in on Cristobal. You think he's the guy. He'll be all right.
Yeah. I really, why? I think it's because, the cycle of sports is very secular. If you look back at 97, this is Butch Davis all over again. Like This really is. And he's, for that matter, Butch was a dictator, and I think Mario's a dictator. There's a certain way to do things. And whether he's holding his coaches or players accountable, Butch did the same damn thing. Your scholarship was threatened. Even though back in the day when you signed your letter of intent, you're expected 4 years, that ain't going to be the case. If you ain't given everything you got for Mario Cristobal and his staff, you're gone the next year. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to hear you whining about it. He doesn't want to hear you crying about it. There's a certain level of entitlement that's over there right now that he's trying to flush out. And I really do believe that this is the 97 season. And the reason why is because there was banners being flown around the Orange Bowl. Butch, thanks, national champs, the chumps.
Yeah.
And 5-6 was what that season was. And I came in just after that, in the January just after that. And then they basically weeded out all the cancer that was on that football program. There might have been a lingering year after that. But for the most part, you started getting Butch Davis's class, his recruiting classes, whether it was the Santana Mosses, Reggie Waynes, Jeremy Shockey's, God damn, you name it, Winslow's, everywhere up to when the Miami Hurricanes sucked, maybe 2 years after Coker started as a head coach. And that was the last year of Butch Davis's recruiting class. And you could see the slow decline thereafter. So I really believe that Mario is rebuilding the foundation the right way, going back to getting players that we want, not necessarily paper champs. We want dogs. That's what we want at this program. We're not interested in what you've done in high school. We want to see what you are willing to do and what you're willing to go ahead and give in order to go ahead and make this program great again.
When someone says to me, I'm like, well, what do you think's gone so wrong this year? And someone says to me, well, they had bad players who were in a system that fits them, and now they have bad players who are in a system that doesn't fit them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's because, the turnover situation at Miami. We've had a lot of head coaches. We've had a lot of different ideologies. We've had a lot of different characters. And if you look at molds that have been built at whether it's Alabama, Clemson, there's a lot of level of consistency there. And if you saw a short burst of what Florida State has built, Florida State's in I think year 4 now of Novell. So they've already created their mold of what they're looking for football player wise. Saban, obviously, there's certain players that aren't Alabama Crimson Tide players. They're very, very good, and they go somewhere else, and they do very, very well. But what Mario has in terms of his mold is a little bit different than what has been here in the past. In particular, the Manny Diaz era. Mark Richt is, I think Mark Richt was just ultimately a statue when he was here. He was a money grab for the most part, and I think that he helped raise a good amount of money, and he did what he was, I guess you could say, hired to do. When he
look,
came
Mark
here.
Richt has Mark Richt gave the Canes fan a forever game. That Notre Dame game, that's a forever game. You're always going to remember it.
Yep.
I mean, he gave the Canes fan the best season they've experienced in the last 20 years. So I got a hard time really being down on Mark Richt. I understand what you're saying, but I got a hard time being down on Mark Richt.
Yeah, he's a great human being. He did what he was supposed to do when he got here. Obviously, the man got ill. You can't predict that. But I knew from the jump he came here for his retirement package. Yeah. I knew from whatever the guys from the Falcons told me, the coaches from the Falcons, obviously being right next to UGA up there, they called me and they're like, what the hell are you guys doing? That guy's coming there to retire. So I don't know if you guys are looking to go ahead and build an organization with him, but he's just basically going there to retire. So I knew that from the jump. But in terms of big name, big recruiting, big check donations, he did exactly what he was hired and brought in to do. Yeah.
Finally here, Brett, how mad were you? Or maybe you weren't because maybe you expected it. How mad were you after the FSU game a few weeks ago? Because I've been around Brett Romberg. We've been in the suite with the FSU game, and he tries to jump out the window of the suite because that was the game where Jameis had never lost, came all the way back. Right. Canes were up 21-6. Jameis came back, won the game. Romberg's trying to jump out the suite window to fight FSU fans. His wife is holding him back, saying, think about your daughters. Think about your girls. And we're trying to hold Brett back from fighting. Were you okay after this year's FSU loss?
And I'm tweeting at LeBron James, telling him to F off. Yeah.
LeBron. For people who don't remember, so LeBron, because that day he was an FSU fan. I mean, just no character as a sports fan.
Clearly.
And after the game, he was so excited about the win. And Romberg was very upset. He goes, "You see this tweet?" I go, "Yeah, I saw the tweet." I go, "Man, that pisses me off." I go, "You know what, man? If you're mad, you shouldn't keep all that bottled up, man.
You should voice your opinion.
Yeah, you should tell them how you feel. You gotta let that out. It's not healthy keeping that all bottled up. Really? You think I should say something?" I go, "Yeah, I think you should tweet something right now. That's not healthy to keep that all bottled up, man." Were you okay after this one?
Yeah, I really was. I think I saw after the losses of Middle Tennessee and Duke and stuff like that, I kind of knew what I was dealing with at that point in time. So I was emotionally ready. Not to say that, at the beginning of the season, if you would have rewound and looked at the amount of tidal wave of excitement and
Yeah.
confidence that we had with the Miami Hurricanes going into the
Yeah.
season. There was no way that Florida State was going to knock us off. And then all of a sudden, Florida State's 3-0 and we're kind of pooping the bed a little bit. So I wasn't as what I was more than anything? I was probably just more disheartened and disappointed in the players for letting it get that out of hand. There's just a certain level of pride. And when you're just, laying down and putting your ankles behind your ears and just ready to go ahead and take it, I really didn't, for a lack of a better explanation, I basically felt like that's what we did. We just kind of laid down like a dog getting ready to get his belly scratched. That's the way it looked to me. And, that shows a lot of the character currently that might be in some of the leadership positions on that program.
Romberg, tell everyone how they can catch you and your pals on Out the Huddle.
Yeah, man, we do a Twitter space basically every Tuesday night, 7:00. We launch some long extended video stuff on the Dime Life page as well. We had some sit downs with TVD and Lou Headley, and we got some really cool up and coming stuff as well. Whether it's talking with Sean Taylor's daughter or doing a bunch of different things. So we it's sparing. It's definitely sparing, but we're pretty consistent with that Twitter space on Tuesday nights, and we get to voice our opinions, and we ask about the Kane fan and how they want to go ahead and come on and say their basically vent. Ultimately, is what it is. But we try to put a positive spin on things, and keep people engaged. A lot of Golden Canes, a lot of people in that Kane community come on, and a lot of writers and people covering the Canes are pretty involved in it as well. So it's a good perspective collectively on what's going on with Miami football. So you can check that out as well on Dime Life's Twitter page too. So
great job, man.
Not much of a social media guy anymore, Zaz. I got my IG hacked a couple of years ago, and I never really made any kind of attempt at getting it back, to be honest with you.
You never recovered. You never recovered.
No, I think my last post was like a Naples post on Memorial Day a couple of years ago, and that was really about it.
They took you out. They ended it for you.
Man, they done hurt the kid, man. I'm out.
Romberg, excellent job, man. This was fun. I like being able to do this and we could see each other again. This was good.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. So how's the show's going? Awesome, man. I've heard nothing but great things. So
yeah,
congratulations to you.
Thanks.
I know we've been talking about you doing something solo mission now for a while. What's up with the wrestling, man? When are you going to start doing some more wrestling stuff?
I am. We're this weekend is going to be the 3rd episode. Every Saturday, I got a wrestling show. It's called It's Still Real to Me.
I know. I saw the one episode you guys had an interview with. You know what you got to do? You got to get little mini Zaz on there interviewing and asking. Have him one week just be like, okay, think of a really good question that I need you to ask the wrestler. Because clearly the wrestlers love the kids. Yeah. And I think hearing what your son wants to know about a wrestler, I think that'd be a really cool thing. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm finally doing it. I'm doing it. It's every Saturday. It's still real to me. It's me. I got a co-host. We do it together. We recap all the big news and stories in pro wrestling that week. It's a lot of fun. I love it. So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Two-time champ, man. Two-time champ, bro.
That's right. You only got one, man. I got 2 times as many as you. You only got one. Come on.
I know.
Come on.
I know, man.
Great job, Brett. I appreciate it, man. We'll do this again soon.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Anytime. I'm around.